Right now, somewhere in an old jar, a drawer, or a dusty coffee can sitting on a shelf in a quiet American home, there could be a 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollar staring back at history itself. Not just any half dollar, but a Denver D. Mint marked bicentennial issue that might hold secrets most people will never notice. And here's where it gets interesting. Because while millions of Americans handled these coins during the nation's 200th birthday celebration, almost no one realized that a handful of them left the mint with mistakes so rare, so overlooked, that today they can turn ordinary pocket change into something collectors chase with almost obsessive intensity. But before you dismiss, this is just another coin story. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear has left even seasoned numismatists double-checking their change jars. 2 centuries after the Declaration of Independence, the United States Mint did something bold. In 1975 and 1976, it released a special commemorative design on the Kennedy half dollar, featuring Independence Hall on the reverse, and the dual dates 1776 to 1976 proudly stamped on the front. Millions were struck. Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, and that's where most people stop listening, because millions were struck usually means not valuable. But that assumption is exactly what makes people miss the hidden treasures. Now focus on the Denver Mint mark, the small D stamped beneath the date. These coins were primarily made for circulation, pocket change, bank rolls, everyday transactions. The kind of coins that pass through thousands of hands during gas station purchases, grocery store checkouts, and vending machines. And yet, within that massive production run, a microscopic number escaped with errors that were never meant to leave the mint. Some of them are almost invisible at first glance. A slight misalignment. A missing layer of metal. A die strike that went just a fraction off center. Tiny imperfections that the average person would never notice. They see rarity. They see accident turned opportunity. And in rare cases, they see value that climbs far beyond imagination. Now here's the first twist most people never hear about. Not all 1776 to 1976 half dollars are created equal. There are standard clad versions, and then there are 40% silver versions, mostly associated with San Francisco Mint proofs. But even within the Denver D coins, strictly intended as circulation strikes, errors have been documented that turn an ordinary coin into a high-demand anomaly. One of the most sought after is the missing clad layer error. Imagine holding a half dollar that looks wrong. The color is off. The surface reveals a copper core where it shouldn't be visible. That's not damage. That's a minting failure. And depending on condition, these can command thousands. But that's just the beginning. Because then, there are off-center strikes, where the design isn't properly aligned, leaving part of the coin looking like it slipped during creation. Some are minor. Some are dramatic enough that entire design elements are pushed to the edge or partially missing, and the more extreme the error, the higher the demand. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. Every so often, a coin surfaces that doesn't just fit one category, it defies expectations entirely. Double die varieties. Coins where the design appears slightly duplicated, almost like a shadow behind the lettering or numbers. Subtle? Yes. Easy to miss? Absolutely. But under magnification, these errors can reveal themselves in ways that separate a 50-cent coin from a 4-figure collectible. And collectors are always watching, always searching. Because every roll of half dollars from that era is like a time capsule that hasn't been fully opened yet. Most circulated 1776 to 1976 D half dollars are worth face value. Maybe a slight premium if uncirculated. But the story changes dramatically when condition and rarity collide. High-grade examples certified near perfect mint state can command strong premiums. Those can escalate into the thousands depending on severity and demand at auction. But here's where things get controversial. There have been reports and listings circulating in collector communities suggesting extraordinary auction results tied to exceptional bicentennial half dollars. Some claims reaching into the hundreds of thousands for uniquely graded or historically misattributed specimens. In fact, one figure that continues to circulate in online discussions is a reported high sale approaching $394,000. But pause for a moment, because in the world of rare coins, not every headline survives scrutiny. Some figures come from bundled collections, pedigree pieces, or disputed listings that spark debate even among experts. And yet, the fact that these numbers even appear in conversation tells you something important. People are paying attention, serious attention, and attention in the collector market often precedes value shifts that most everyday holders never see coming. Now imagine this. You're going through an old jar of coins. You see that familiar bicentennial design, Independence Hall, bold and patriotic, frozen in metal. You almost toss it aside, but then something makes you stop. The strike looks slightly off. The edge seems unusual. The color doesn't match the rest. That moment, that hesitation, is exactly how discoveries begin. Because the truth is, most valuable coins aren't found in vaults or museums. They're found in homes, just like yours. In places where people assumed it's just old change. And here's the final twist that changes everything. Even coins that aren't dramatically valuable can still gain attention if they are properly graded, preserved, and authenticated. Condition is everything. A coin pulled from circulation and handled without care might be worth nothing more than 50 cents, while the same coin, preserved in pristine condition, could enter a completely different tier of collector demand. Because in this world, overlooking is where opportunity lives, and right now, somewhere across the country, there are people holding coins like this without realizing they're holding a piece of a much larger story. A story of mistakes that became rarities. Of production flaws that became collectibles. Of everyday money that quietly transformed into historical artifacts. So, before you dismiss that handful of half dollars sitting in your house, take one closer look, turn it under the light, check the mint mark, study the surface. Because history doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, and if you're lucky enough to spot one of these rare 1776 to 1976 mint mark half dollars with the right combination of condition and error, a simple 1974 half dollar. And no flashy design change, no commemorative hype. Just a workhorse coin that passed through millions of hands in the chaos of the 1970s economy. But here's where it gets strange. Because somewhere along the way, collectors began whispering about something unusual, something that shouldn't exist. A 1974 half dollar with no mint mark that seemed different. Not just in appearance, but in story, in rarity, and in alleged value that spiraled into online legend. Some claims even push the boundaries of belief, talking about jaw-dropping auction numbers, viral listings, and coins supposedly reaching figures that sound almost unreal. But before you dismiss it, or rush to check your drawers, you need to understand what's actually going on here. Because the truth is more layered, more surprising, and far more interesting than the rumor itself. And it all starts with something most people overlook completely. A tiny detail you've probably seen 1,000 times without ever noticing. The mint mark. Or in this case, the absence of one. In 1974, the Kennedy half dollar was struck primarily in Philadelphia and Denver, with San Francisco producing special proofs. Philadelphia coins carried no mint mark at all. That means millions of 1974 half dollars already left the mint looking exactly like this so-called mystery coin. So here's the first twist. The no mint mark 1974 half dollar is not automatically rare. In fact, it's expected. And yet, collectors still chase it. Because in the world of coins, it's never just about what's missing. It's about what went wrong. Or what went differently. Imagine holding a coin that passed through high-speed presses in a rapidly evolving mint system, where even the smallest mechanical hiccup could leave behind a permanent fingerprint. A doubled image, you need magnification to see. A faint shift in lettering that only reveals itself under light. A surface struck twice, or not quite centered. These aren't headline errors. They're quiet ones. And quiet errors are where the real tension begins. The 1970s were a transitional period for U.S. coin production. Technology was improving, demand was exploding, and quality control wasn't always perfect. That combination creates opportunity. Opportunity for mistakes. And mistakes, in numismatics, can sometimes mean money, real money. But now comes the question that pulls everyone deeper into the story. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of those viral numbers are unverified, exaggerated, or taken out of context from entirely different coins. But that doesn't mean the story ends there, because while millions of dollars claims don't hold up under auction records, something else absolutely does: condition and errors, and the razor-thin line between ordinary and extraordinary. Let's slow this down for a moment. Picture two 1974 half dollars. They were minted on the same day. They may have even been struck within minutes of each other. One went into circulation, was spent, scratched, worn down by decades of commerce. The other was set aside, preserved, untouched. Same year, same design, completely different outcome. One might be worth 50 cents. The other could reach hundreds, sometimes thousands, depending on grade and rarity of a specific error. And that's where things start to get dangerous for the inattentive eye. Because the real value isn't always obvious. It hides in imperfections. A weak strike where the design looks slightly soft. A double die effect where letters appear subtly shadowed. A clipped planchet where the edge looks like it was cut away. Or even dramatic minting anomalies that are rare enough to make serious collectors pause mid-auction. And when that happens, competition begins. And when competition begins, prices rise, not into fantasy territory, but into something very real: collector-driven demand. Now here's the turning point in this story. Because while most people are still searching for some mythical $1 million 1974 half dollar, experienced collectors are focused on something far more practical. They're not chasing legends. They're scanning coins with magnifiers. They're weighing them, measuring them, tilting them under light at just the right angle, because they know something others don't. The difference between a common coin and a valuable one can be microscopic, and sometimes invisible to the naked eye. The viral listings, the shocking screenshots, the stories of half dollars supposedly selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars, even numbers like $894,000 being circulated in online forums. Here's the reality check. No verified auction record supports a standard 1974 Kennedy half dollar, mint mark or no mint mark, reaching anywhere near those figures. But the persistence of these stories reveals something important. People want to believe treasure is still out there, and sometimes that belief keeps them looking long enough to find something real. Because while the internet exaggerates, coin errors do exist, and some of them are genuinely worth pursuing. Start simple, then examine the surface carefully for doubling in the lettering of Liberty or In God We Trust. Weigh the coin. Even small deviations can signal a wrong planchet or metal anomaly. And most importantly, compare it to a normal example under good lighting. Because once you see the difference, you can't unsee it, and that moment, that realization, is where everything changes. Not because you've found a millionaire coin, but because you've stepped into a world where small details carry real weight, where a pocket change discovery could turn into a certified mint error worth a serious premium, and where curiosity alone is often the difference between overlooking value and recognizing it. Here's the final thought. Some stories online will tell you that a 1974 half dollar no mint mark is your ticket to instant wealth, that it's hiding in plain sight, waiting to make you rich beyond imagination. But the real story is even more powerful than that, because the truth doesn't rely on fantasy. It relies on knowledge. And once you know what to look for, you'll never see loose change the same way again. That coin in your drawer, your jar, your old collection box, it isn't just metal. It's possibility. And the next time you hear someone dismiss half dollars as ordinary, you'll know something they don't. Ordinary is just what it looks like before you examine it closely. This is about a simple half dollar, dated 1977. Mint mark, and for decades, it has been quietly passing through American hands, unnoticed, while a storm of rumors built up around it. But here's where things get interesting, because once you understand what you're really looking at, you'll never see your pocket change the same way again. In 1977, the United States Mint struck Kennedy half dollars in massive numbers. These coins weren't rare, weren't hidden, and certainly weren't designed to be valuable collectibles at the time. They were workhorse currency, meant to circulate, to be spent, to be forgotten, and most of them came from Philadelphia. Now here's the detail that sparks confusion every single time. Mint mark. That's right. A 1977 half dollar with no mint mark isn't a mystery at all. It's actually expected. Philadelphia coins of that era typically left the mint without a mint mark designation. So when people stumble across one today and notice that blank space, they assume they've found something rare. Because online, the story changes dramatically. Some claim these coins are ultra-rare errors. Others insist they've seen auctions soar into the hundreds of thousands. And in the most exaggerated corners of the internet, you'll even hear whispers of six-figure or even seven-figure valuations tied to a no mint mark 1977 half dollar. But here's the twist no one talks about loud enough. A missing mint mark in 1977 is not an error. It is normal production. Because the real story isn't about the absence of a letter. It's about what actually makes coins valuable, and how easily our expectations can be manipulated by a simple detail we don't fully understand. Now imagine this. You're sorting through a handful of old coins. Pennies, nickels, half dollars. Most look ordinary. Then your eyes lock onto a 1977 Kennedy half dollar. No mint mark. Your heart skips. You remember something you saw online, a headline, a video, a claim that this exact coin could change everything. And suddenly, it's not just a coin anymore. It's a possibility. But before you start calculating life-changing money, there's a critical question you have to ask. Because rarity alone isn't enough, and condition alone isn't enough either, and even date alone won't save you. The truth is far more precise and far more interesting. For a 1977 Kennedy half dollar to carry significant value, it would need something extraordinary. A true mint error. Not a normal strike. Not a standard circulation piece. We're talking about dramatic, verifiable mistakes from the minting process itself. Double dies that create visible doubling in the design. Off-center strikes where the image is dramatically misaligned. Wrong planchet errors where the coin was struck on the wrong type of metal blank. These are the kinds of anomalies that collectors chase. Because unlike normal coins, errors like these are born from chaos at the mint, rare, unpredictable, and impossible to perfectly replicate. And even then, there's a catch. Condition. A coin pulled from circulation, scratched, worn, and handled for decades? That dramatically limits value. But a flawless, uncirculated specimen with a dramatic mint error? That's where serious collector money can enter the picture. Still, let's pause here, because this is where the story takes another turn. You may have heard claims online, stories of 1977 half dollars selling for staggering amounts. Viral posts suggesting prices in the hundreds of thousands. Even whispers of auction results that sound almost unreal. But when you trace those claims back to verified auction records, something important happens. They vanish. And O confirmed sale of a standard 1977 no mint mark Kennedy half dollar has ever reached anywhere near those extreme figures. In fact, most examples, circulated or even lightly circulated, remain close to face value or modest collector premiums, because hope is powerful, and the idea that something so ordinary could suddenly become extraordinary is irresistible. But don't tune out yet, because this is where things get real. While the standard 1977 no mint mark half dollar is common, there are still genuine opportunities hiding in plain sight. Real errors do exist from this era. Real varieties. Real anomalies that collectors actively search for, and most people never notice them. They spin the coin. They overlook the detail. They miss the difference between ordinary and exceptional. A slight doubling on the lettering of Liberty. A subtle misalignment in Kennedy's profile. A faint but distinct anomaly in the strike that only reveals itself under magnification. To the untrained eye. Just another coin. To a collector. A completely different story. And here's where the suspense tightens. Because somewhere out there, in jars, drawers, old collections, and forgotten boxes, coins like this are still waiting to be discovered. Not mythical million-dollar pieces, but real, verifiable mint errors that carry genuine collector demand. The kind of coins people overlook every day. The kind that slip through estate sales unnoticed. The kind that end up in circulation long after they should have been set aside. So the question shifts. Because the truth about coin collecting is not just about rarity. It's about awareness. And awareness changes everything. Now, imagine one final scenario. You take that half dollar back into your hand. You tilt it under the light. At first, it looks ordinary, almost disappointing. But then you slow down. You examine the details. You compare it. You question it. And for the first time, you realize most people never even get this far. Most people never look closely enough to see what's actually there. And that's where opportunity lives. Not in fantasy. Not in exaggerated internet claims. But in the quiet space between assumption and attention. So here's the lasting truth. The 1977 no mint mark Kennedy half dollar is not a hidden million-dollar secret waiting to make you rich overnight. But it is a reminder that valuable coins don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they're loud and obvious, but more often, they're subtle, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone patient enough to notice the difference. And maybe, just maybe, the next time you hear someone dismiss pocket change as worthless, you'll think twice, because history has a strange habit of hiding value where no one thinks to look. A missing mint mark. Now stay with me, because this is where most people get it wrong. In 1978, the United States Mint struck millions upon millions of Kennedy half dollars. They were never meant to be rare, never meant to be mysterious. Just another workhorse coin passing through cash registers, bank rolls, and forgotten coin jars across America. But then came the confusion, the whispers, and the obsession, because collectors started noticing something strange. Some 1978 half dollars had no mint mark at all, and suddenly, a question spread like wildfire. Let's slow this down, because the truth is far more interesting than the hype. In 1978, half dollars were struck primarily at the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Denver coins carry a small D mint mark. Philadelphia coins? They carry nothing. So yes, many genuine 1978 half dollars were produced with no mint mark at all. But here's where the story takes a turn most people never hear. Because in the world of coin collecting, no mint mark doesn't automatically mean rare, but it does open the door to something else entirely: condition and errors, and the kind of microscopic details that separate pocket change from auction headlines. The answer isn't in the date. It's in what happened after the coin left the mint. Think about it. Every single 1978 half dollar had to survive circulation. Pockets, vending machines, cash drawers, rolls of coins being dumped and rewrapped over and over again. Most were damaged, most were forgotten, most were melted down or lost to time. They survived untouched, and that's where things start to get interesting, because in numismatics, preservation is everything. A coin in average condition might be worth 50 cents, or maybe a couple dollars to the right buyer. Suddenly, you're not looking at pocket change anymore. You're looking at a certified rarity. And this is where the suspense deepens, because experts have occasionally recorded exceptional 1978 half dollars reaching strong collector prices at auction when graded at elite levels. But here's the twist most people miss. The internet loves to exaggerate. You may see claims floating around, stories of extraordinary sales, jaw-dropping figures, and once-in-a-lifetime listings tied to common-date half dollars. Some even circulate viral numbers reaching into the six figures, or in rare online rumors, even higher. Those extreme figures are not the norm, and often lack verified auction documentation. Still, the excitement persists, because even if the headlines are inflated, the underlying truth is real. High-grade Kennedy half dollars from this era can and do command serious collector attention, and sometimes surprising prices. Now let's talk about what actually makes a 1978 half dollar stand out in a meaningful way. Look closely at Kennedy's hair. The sharper the detail, the more desirable the coin. Contact marks. Even the smallest scratch can drop a coin's grade and its value dramatically. And then there are errors. This is where things get dangerous for your expectations and exciting for your curiosity. Because yes, errors do exist in the Kennedy half dollar series. Some coins show off-center strikes. Others show doubling in the design elements. Some rare examples may exhibit planchet issues, striking irregularities, or minting anomalies that were never intended to leave production. And while most of these errors are modest in value, certain combinations, paired with exceptional condition, can push coins far beyond face value. But let's be very clear here. However, and this is the part that keeps collectors searching through rolls late at night, there are documented cases across U.S. coinage where seemingly ordinary coins, under the right conditions, in the right grade, with the right verified error, have sold for substantial sums at auction, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands, and in extremely rare, historically significant cases across all denominations, far more, because most people never look closely enough to find out. They spin the coin. They toss it in a jar. They dismiss it as just another piece of change from a bygone era. But collectors know something different. They know that value isn't always obvious. It's hidden in details most people never notice. A sharp eye. A little patience, and the willingness to question what everyone else ignores. Now imagine this for a moment. You're going through an old coin jar that's been sitting in a closet for decades. Pennies, nickels, quarters, and then a handful of half dollars. You almost skip them. Almost. But then you remember what you heard. An omit mark doesn't always mean nothing. Condition matters. Errors matter. And rarity isn't always about production numbers. It's about survival. So you take a closer look. You tilt the coin under the light. You examine Kennedy's profile. You check every detail. And suddenly, your pulse changes. Because you realize something most people never do. You're not just holding a coin. You're holding a moment in time that may have been overlooked for nearly half a century. And whether it turns out to be a modest find or something truly special, one truth remains. You would have never known if you hadn't looked. That's the real secret behind coins like the 1978 Kennedy half dollar. Not guaranteed riches, not overnight millions, but possibility. The possibility that something ordinary might not be so ordinary after all. So the next time you see a half dollar, especially one from 1978, don't rush past it. Don't assume. Don't overlook it. Because in the world of coin collecting, the biggest discoveries don't come from what you expect, they come from what you almost ignored. And right now, somewhere in America, There's a coin sitting in a drawer, a jar, or an old box. A coin that collectors today still argue about. A coin surrounded by confusion, rumors, and a question that refuses to die. Why does a 1979 no-mint mark half dollar exist? And why are people claiming it could be worth hundreds of thousands, even millions? Before you dismiss this as another coin myth, consider this. Some of the rarest fortunes ever found in pocket change didn't look rare at all, until someone knew exactly what to look for. And this is where the story begins, because the truth about the 1979 half dollar isn't just about one coin. It's about misunderstanding, hidden minting variations, and the kind of errors that most people walk right past every single day. Stay with this, because by the end, you may never look at your change the same way again. Let's start with something most people get wrong immediately. In 1979, the Philadelphia Mint struck Kennedy half dollars without a mint mark. That means if you're holding a 1979 half dollar with no mint mark, it is not automatically rare. In fact, it is expected. But here's where things start to twist. Because in the world of coin collecting, expectation is where opportunity hides in plain sight. The real value is never in what's normal, it's in what shouldn't exist. And that's where the mystery deepens. Collectors have reported finding 1979 half dollars with unusual characteristics. Weak strikes. Off-center impressions. Die cracks so dramatic, they look like lightning frozen into metal. And in extremely rare cases, anomalies that suggest something went wrong during production in a way that wasn't supposed to happen. Now pause for a moment, because here's the question most people never ask. The Kennedy half dollar series has always carried a strange energy in the collecting world. It's modern enough to still circulate in some places, yet old enough that minting mistakes are well documented and heavily studied. But 1979 sits in a strange position. It was a transitional era for U.S. coin production. The mint was under pressure. Demand was changing. Quality control processes were evolving. And when systems shift quickly, mistakes slip through. Not obvious mistakes. Subtle ones. The kind that don't reveal themselves unless you really know what you're looking at. And that's where the suspense builds. Because most 1979 half dollars are worth 50 cents, they become something else entirely. Imagine holding a coin where the design appears doubled, almost ghosted. Or a strike so misaligned that part of Kennedy's profile fades into the rim. Or a planchet error where the metal itself was flawed before the coin was even struck. To the untrained eye, it's junk. To a specialist, it can be the difference between pocket change and a life-changing discovery. But here's where things take a sharp turn. You may have heard whispers online. Stories claiming 1979 half dollars with no mint mark or dramatic errors have sold for astronomical figures. Some claims circulate about coins reaching six-figure prices. In rare cases, even higher numbers are repeated across forums and viral posts, including figures like $664,000 for top condition or extreme error examples. Now stop right there, because this is where hype and reality begin to collide. Verified auction records for 1979 Kennedy half dollars do not commonly support those headline numbers. But, and this is important, high-grade error coins, especially those with dramatic minting mistakes, can and do command strong premiums in specialized auctions. And in the coin world, perception can fuel demand just as much as rarity. Which means one question becomes critical. A weak strike can sometimes indicate die fatigue or improper pressure during minting. While most weak strikes are minor, extreme cases can create dramatic visual distortions that collectors chase aggressively. These happen when the coin blank is not properly aligned. The result is a coin that looks almost slipped during production. The more off-center it is, without losing critical design elements, the more desirable it can become. Third, die errors. Cracks, chips, and die deterioration can create repeating patterns across a limited batch of coins. These are often overlooked in circulation, but specialists hunt them because they represent a frozen moment of mint failure. And finally, the rarest category of all, wrong planchet errors. This is where a coin is struck on the wrong type of metal blank. It's extremely uncommon, but when it happens, the results can be extraordinary. Now imagine this: a coin that looks ordinary in your hand, but under magnification tells a completely different story. A hidden anomaly. A production mistake. A detail missed for decades. This is where collectors lean in, because the truth is not every valuable coin looks valuable. And that brings us back to the 1979 half dollar, because it sits at the intersection of three powerful forces: everyday availability, collector nostalgia, and just enough documented error activity to keep hope alive. And hope is powerful. It turns a 50-cent coin into a potential treasure hunt. But here's the tension that keeps experts cautious: the vast majority of 1979 half dollars, even those in pristine condition, are not rare. High grades exist, yes, but they are not uncommon enough to justify extreme valuations on their own. The real value spikes only occur when something verifiably unusual is present, which means the challenge is not finding a 1979 half dollar. It's recognizing whether yours is ordinary or quietly extraordinary. Start simple. Examine the edges. Look for irregular strikes or missing detail. Rotate the coin under light. Watch for doubling in the lettering or Kennedy's profile. Check for anything that looks misaligned, as if the design was stamped slightly off its intended position. That doesn't mean you found nothing. It just means the story isn't over yet. Because the most dangerous assumption in coin collecting is thinking you already know what something is worth at first glance. Many of the greatest discoveries in numismatics came from coins that looked completely average, until someone took a second look, and that is where everything changes. Now imagine this final moment. You're sorting through an old jar of coins. Loose change, forgotten pieces, maybe something inherited and never checked. Your fingers pause. A 1979 Kennedy half dollar. An mint mark. At first glance, ordinary. But then you remember what you just learned. You tilt it under the light. You look closer. And suddenly, you're not just holding metal anymore. You're holding possibility. Because whether it's worth 50 cents or far more depends entirely on what most people never bother to see. And that is the quiet truth behind every great coin. Discovery. The treasure isn't hidden in the mint. It's hidden in attention. So before you spend your next half dollar, or overlook the next coin in your collection, take one more look.